Good morning, everybody. At this time, I am reconvening the meeting of the IQC and will now turn the meeting over to History and Social Science SMC Chair Diaz.
Thank you, Chair. I call the History Social Science SMC to order. If you are a member of the History Social Science SMC, please place your nameplate up so it can be seen by the audience. If you are not a member of the HSSMC, please put your nameplate face down. Members are myself, Vice Chair Munoz, Commissioners Lara, Pantay, Renteria, Rustin, Williamson, and IQC Chair Zhao. So at our May meeting, we approved the draft of the model curriculum prepared by the Model Curriculum Advisory Committee for a period of public review and comment. The notice of public review period and the draft model curriculum were posted on the CDE website on June 14th, 2019. The public review and comment period ended on August 15th, 2019. I will note, however, that the IQC has had access to all comments received both before and after the public comment period stated on the website. During the public comment period, there was significant public response and media attention. The California Department of Education received over 20,000 public comments, which were submitted through emails, letters, and postcards from individuals and organizations. The CDE provided a template that submitters could use, but the use of the template was not required. The comments were uploaded to the cdebox.com account and were provided to the commissioners unaltered except for the addition of the comments source. When that was not provided in the comment itself, personal contact information, such as the commenter's email address, was redacted from the comments when not embedded, for example, in a letterhead. The public was provided access to the folder of comments upon request. The Seaford staff has provided 2 attachments to this item. The first attachment is a brief table that summarizes the public comments that were received during the public review period. The second attachment contains guidelines that were adopted by the State Board of Education to direct the process of developing the model curriculum. The original purpose of this meeting was to review public comments that have been submitted regarding the current draft of the 2020 Model Ethnic Studies curriculum and suggest edits to the draft. However, the CDE has developed a recommendation that I'd like to ask our Executive Director, Dr. Stephanie Gregson, to say more about this.
Thank you, Chair Diaz. I'm going to move to the podium for this. I moved to the podium because I'm presenting the CDE recommendation to you as the Deputy Superintendent of Public Instruction. Last week, I presented to the State Board of Education a recommendation that involved allowing for the gift of time in the mathematics framework development process. I'm here in front of you today to recommend the same thing. We are recommending more time in continuing the development of on the current Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum draft, and therefore we recommend no action be taken by the IQC on the current draft of the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum today. We want to thank the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum Advisory Committee for their expertise, time, and work on the initial draft. The Advisory Committee provided us with a solid start on the draft model curriculum. We feel that we need more time to review, revise, and edit the current draft Ethnic Studies model curriculum to ensure alignment to the State Board of Education adopted guidelines and the intent of the original legislation, AB 2016. As you know, we received over 20,000 public comments, which suggests we need more time to accomplish this alignment. The legislature has shown their support in allowing for more time to this process, as there is language in the trailer bill providing for an extension on the original March 2020 statutory deadline, moving it to March 2021. Moving forward, we envision a process that may include listening sessions of school districts implementing ethnic studies programs, consultations with ethnic studies experts such as our IQC Commissioner Shirley Weber, and varying types of feedback processes. I would like to highlight that anyone who wants to give input will be able to, as this is a public process that will include opportunities for public review. Although other states have done state-level work on ethnic studies, we are the first state to create a state-level ethnic studies model curriculum. For this reason, we want to do it well, and we want to do it right, as we know the nation will be looking towards California as a model. We owe this thoughtfulness to the students we serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director Gregson. As a result of this recommendation, the IQC will not be taking action on the draft ethnic study model curriculum today. We will take public comment from those members of the public who are in attendance today. But I wanted all of you to know that we have read your comments. We will address your concerns as the process moves forward. Anyone who wishes to address the SMC is invited to sign in at the table located near the auditorium doors. Before we begin public comment, do any members of the SMC have any questions? Okay, hearing none. I would like to invite members of the public who wish to provide comment to do so. For those giving public comment, in order to ensure that there is time for speakers to be heard, we are asking people to cooperate and adhere to the following practices. Members of the public may sign up to address the IQC committee during the time allocated for such public comment. Speakers will be assigned to give public comment in the order that they have signed up and may be given a numbered card. When called upon to speak, speakers identify their name and the organization they represent, if any. Members of the public may only sign up to speak themselves and may not sign up for other speakers. Speakers will be allocated 1 minute per speaker. Speakers may not provide comment on behalf of other individual or group who is not present here today. Speakers may not allocate their allotted time to another speaker. Speakers shall refrain from using profanity and shall conduct themselves in a respectful manner. Individuals not complying will be asked to leave the meeting room. No signs allowed inside this meeting room. Members of the public who would like to provide public comment should sign up at the staff table in the back of the room, and the CDE staff will call upon each person up to the microphone by number. Each person will have 1 minute to provide their comment. We will be keeping track of the time and will cut you off at the end of your 1 minute.
Moment I have 30. At the moment, I have 30 signed up, so if speakers 1 through 10, please come into the room and line up in front of the podium. What's that? I'm trying.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Jason Weiner. I'm a parent of 3 in the Sacramento City Unified School District. In working with students, I've seen how powerful and important ethnic studies can be. I've listened as Filipino-American high school students in Stockton shared how learning about their community's history in their city and in the Valley's farms gave them a sense of place and power and people like them to look up to in a place where their story had been ignored. In my own generation, I've seen the power of knowledge as friends and colleagues who were able to benefit from African American studies, Chicano studies, Asian American studies at the college level rejoice that they were finally able to see their community's histories represented, and then have used that knowledge to advocate for a better, stronger, more inclusive community. Ethnic studies is important and powerful and should be included in every California school as the legislature has directed. But I also know personally the pain and powerlessness of hearing others talk about me and my community and identity with stereotypes and prejudices. While there are those actively trying to spread these harmful views,
Good morning. Hello, is this on? My name is Jo. I'm with the JCRC. I'm a mentally disabled person, a genderqueer person, and a Jewish person. I've spent the past month or so wrestling over this curriculum in myself. I've read it cover to cover, and it's really important. There are a lot of really important parts. I was really impressed by a lot of it, and I learned quite a lot. There is no arguing that an ethnic studies curriculum is absolutely indispensable in ensuring the well-being of our society and of our children. And because of this, it is upon us to ensure that the curriculum we discuss today meets the standards of an ethnic studies curriculum. Jewish people are widely recognized as an ethno-religion which has made innumerable contributions to American society. We are also victims of anti-Semitic violence. If this curriculum has a focus on social justice, then why would ethnic groups who are traditionally discriminated against be left out of the curriculum? Including more ethnic groups and their struggles can only broaden our understanding.
Good morning. My name is Bruce Palmer, and as a board member, I'm representing the Jewish Public Affairs Committee of California, JPAC, which is the largest single coalition of Jewish organizations in the nation, also chair of Sacramento JCRC. We appreciate the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum Guidelines, which set high standards of quality, accuracy, and inclusion for the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum. However, the content and the pedagogy of the current draft of the ESMC does not adhere to the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum Guidelines that require the curriculum to be written in a language that is inclusive and supportive of multiple users, encourages cultural understanding of how different groups have struggled, be inclusive by creating space for all students regardless of race, ethnicity, class, gender, sexuality, or citizenship to learn different perspectives. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Meshi Benezri, and I'm an Israeli American public school student from Orange County. I was recently in a room with other Jewish teens, and we were asked how many of us experienced anti-Semitism. More than 90% of the room raised their hands, including me. My family has been fighting to overcome anti-Semitism for hundreds of years. That's why my grandparents fled to Israel. My parents immigrated to America when I was 1 year old, believing in the values of freedom and equality, yet here I am in America still fighting that same hatred. That's why I believe in teaching students about the underrepresented ethnic minorities. I have a stake in this curriculum, and so does the rest of my community. But our experiences as Jews and immigrants from the Middle East are not represented here. If this draft isn't changed, it will harm students just like me across this whole state. Please make sure that doesn't happen. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mikayla, and I'm a high school student from the Bay Area. As a member of an ethnic minority, I fully support the goal of ethnic studies. However, this curriculum not only doesn't include me, but it actively marginalizes me. I learned what a Hitler salute was starting in 5th grade at public school when a boy in my class would hold up one to me on a regular basis. This draft only reinforces that anti-Semitism with lessons such as a poem insinuating that Jews control the media and use it to manipulate the public. This classic anti-Semitism goes back to when the Nazis used similar rhetoric to justify the murder of 6 million Jews, including hundreds of my relatives. I also have relatives who fought in the 1948 war when 5 Arab armies tried to destroy Israel. When this curriculum shares only the Palestinian narrative of that war and promotes BDS, it becomes a personal attack on me and my family. So I stand here today, not at school, but here, pleading with you to fix this. If not for me, then for my little sisters who would have to sit in class every day feeling attacked for who they are. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Danielle York. I'm a student at Santa Monica College and a first-generation Persian American whose parents fled Iran due to anti-Semitism. I support the goal of an ethnic studies education. However, the proposed curriculum, which completely fails to address the Jewish community and its history, along with that of many Middle Eastern minorities, will not accomplish this. Having already experienced anti-Semitism within the first month on my campus, this is especially disheartening. It's difficult to see a curriculum supposedly dedicated to diversity and inclusion would fail to address the rising hatred that students, including myself, are facing. As someone who supports justice and peace for Israelis and Palestinians, I'm also deeply disappointed that this curriculum promotes BDS, a movement that fuels hatred, conflict, and violence. I urge you to revise this draft so students can learn about underrepresented cultures and histories in an accurate, unbiased, and inclusive way. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Qian. I'm a high school senior from Los Angeles. 36 years ago, my parents immigrated to America, fleeing the persecution they faced as Jews in Iran. Imagine our horror, my horror, at seeing the same type of hatred appear in a curriculum that is supposed to set an example for public schools across America and for public schools across the nation. I support the values of ethnic studies. I want my peers to learn about ethnic minorities and communities across the state, including my own. That's why this draft is so disappointing. My family's experience as Jewish immigrants from the Middle East are nowhere to be found. Neither are a number of other Asian and Middle Eastern minority communities. Instead, there are anti-Semitic themes and clear bias. However, I urge you to amend this curriculum so public high school students like me are represented.
Hello. Thank you so much for hearing the comments and concerns of the diverse citizens of California. My name is Kate Chavez, and I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I am a Hispanic Jew, and I am so thankful for values-based education like ethnic studies. I'm also an Israel educator with an organization called Stand With Us. I empower teenagers in California to learn about the Middle East. My work embodies ethnic studies values that are not seen in this model curriculum. The proposed curriculum's inclusion of the anti-Semitic BDS movement with no nuanced discussion around the hate that occurs in the movement and the exclusion of Jewish history creates an unsafe environment for Jewish teens. Friends of mine on college campuses in America already endure anti-Semitic acts that increase when BDS comes to their campus. My high school interns experience swastikas, graffiti on school property, hate speech against Jews regularly, and other forms of classic anti-Semitism. We believe this curriculum will increase these acts of hate. I want to ensure that the 40 Jewish high school interns that I've worked with over the past year and a half
Good morning. I'm Daley Jordan Cook, a teacher with the California Teachers Association, also liaison to the IQC. Thank you for giving the California Teachers Association the opportunity to submit comments on the 2019 draft of the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum. CTA recognizes that this is a historic opportunity for the students of California. We appreciate the work of the educators who served on the advisory committee, as well as the coordination and direction of the IQC and the superintendent of public instruction. CTA believes that within this work, the integrity of the ethnic studies curriculum must be maintained. The outlined process of review and feedback should be allowed to continue, and members of the advisory committee must be included for their input on the revision of the draft. CTA brought together a subcommittee of educators who serve on the C&I committee and the Civil Rights and Education.
We could have speakers 11 through 20 also line up.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Trubowicz, and I am with the San Francisco Jewish Community Relations Council. My children are Latinx and Jewish, and we teach them to be proud of both. There is no space in this curriculum for the intersectionality of their identity. Rather, this curriculum would leave them confused. While they would be taught in the classroom to be proud of their Latinx heritage, they would be hearing negative stereotypes about Jews and Israel, a place that their grandparents live. Furthermore, what happens when the intolerance that is taught in the lesson plan plays out at the lunch table? We must ensure that the content is K-12 appropriate, safe, and pedagogically sound. We can't provide a lightning rod curriculum that has hate embedded in it, and we can't expect to somehow have teachers feel safe teaching the curriculum, schools feel competent supporting it, without creating new risk to manage and for students.
Good morning, committee members. Thanks for being here and listening to all this today. My name is Ihsan Katir, and I'm the California Director for the Hindu American Foundation. We speak up for the 3.2 million Hindus in America, and more specifically this morning, the 700,000 Hindus in California. We have professional educators and researchers, PhDs on staff that would be happy to help make this curriculum more inclusive to include the history and culture and current experiences of the thousands of Hindus in California. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Adam Alots. I'm the head of school at the Warnick Jewish Day School in San Mateo County. Over 70% of my students go on to California public high schools. I appeal to you as a high school, as an educator, a parent, and a member of the Jewish community. I am of Tunisian descent, and I'm one of 200,000 North African and Middle Eastern Jews here in California. My children, my daughters, are of mixed North African and Iranian descent. This curriculum fails to include the experiences of religious and ethnic minorities from the Middle East, including Jews, Assyrians, Kurds, and Iranians. By only exploring the experience from one dominant religious ethnic group in the Middle East, the writers fail to promote rigorous analysis of history, systems of oppression, and the status quo in the Middle East. In addition, the overemphasis on the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement does not follow the curriculum guidelines of teaching in a manner that's balanced, inclusive, and reflective of diverse perspectives. Please keep our students safe. Thank you.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Roxanne McCutcheon, and I represent the Genocide Education Project, a nonprofit organization helping educators teach about genocide, with particular focus on the Armenian genocide perpetrated by the Turkish government in 1915 and considered by historians as the prototype genocide for the modern era. We support the creation of the Ethnic Studies model curriculum, which would help build an atmosphere of understanding, inclusion, and mutual support amongst our diverse communities of California. Unfortunately, we believe the most recent draft would not do this, since it excludes, skews, or otherwise mischaracterizes the experiences of Armenian Americans, as well as Jewish Americans and other groups. We are heartened to learn that you plan to restart the drafting process to correct it. We stand ready to help, as we had with the inclusion of the Armenian American history in the model curriculum for human rights and genocide, as well as the history social framework, to create a truly inclusive curriculum representing
My name is Michele Wolfson, and I'm a public school parent at Rosa Parks Elementary in Berkeley. I've spent years on the school site council planning the careful web of LCAP funds we put in place to support equity and to help all students. At Rosa Parks, every morning, the whole school gathers at lineup to make a pledge to be an ally and to do what we can to make this world a better place for all people to enjoy freedom. The message to our students is that all students belong, we all have a responsibility to be allies in the fight for equity. We also learn at school about the achievements and struggles of many communities, but not the Jewish community. And it's really hard for me as a mother to hear my daughter say, "Mommy, is it weird that I'm Jewish? Should I not tell anyone I'm Jewish? When will we learn about me, Mommy?" And since she was small, I spent a lot of time teaching her that Jews have both privilege and prejudice, and it's our job to make sure that we fight hate in all its forms. And it's really hard for me to see the Ethnic Studies model curriculum not address what her concerns are in her community and her experiences when she's going to be required to do this in.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
Good morning. My name is Erin Kazari, and I'm the Associate Director for the American Jewish Committee in San Francisco. This body has been tasked with a very important and very necessary goal to create an ethnic studies program that represents and uplifts communities that have been essential to this country but ignored and marginalized for too long. You have an important decision to make, whether to create the ethnic studies program that focuses entirely on the 4 communities most notably covered in ethnic studies, or to attempt a broader venture, one which highlights the many communities that make up this state, Arab, Jewish, and more, tackling material issues such as anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. What this body should not do is pick winners and losers or define for others what their ethnicity is. You cannot include the Middle East as Asia, but exclude the minority communities in the Middle East, such as Israelis, Mizrahi Jews, and Armenians. I do not see the logic in introducing Islamophobia, homophobia, and transphobia to explain white supremacy and hate crimes, but to exclude anti-Semitism, especially given the threat of hate crimes to the
Hello, my name is Alfonso Thompson, and I'm one of the Ethnic Studies Advisory Committee members. I'm here to represent African Americans all across the state of California. We stand in solidarity with all groups from any racial background, sexual orientation, and religious groups. The African American community fully supports the draft model curriculum with minor revisions. We believe ethnic studies is a key to saving America and lives across the country. As an expert in high school ethnic studies, we must save the curriculum in its current state, or we jeopardize the integrity of the curriculum. The narrative that the curriculum is anti-Semitic is far from the truth and based on ignorance, fear, and a lack of background history in ethnic studies. We stand with our Jewish brothers and sisters, and we are open to minor revisions of the current draft, and we solicit feedback and suggestions, but the IQC must keep the draft in the way that it is. That way, African Americans, Chicanx, Latinx, Asian Americans, Native Americans' voices aren't muted. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Maya Howard. I'm a junior at a Sacramento public school and a representative from the Sacramento Jewish Community Relations Council. After thoroughly reading the curriculum, I can without a doubt say that I'm in favor of its existence and truly do hope that ethnic studies will be implemented in schools, as I believe that it will help to create a more open-minded and less bigoted generation. However, when a curriculum that claims to educate students on oppression and create solidarity across intersectional lines does not include Jews, who, although are by majority white and experience white privilege in other facets of their lives, are still the subjects of violence and hate crimes at rising rates, this creates an incomplete picture of what oppression in our world looks like today. And when people don't know that a problem exists, nothing gets done to change it. This draft of the curriculum would raise a generation unaware of anti-Semitism and therefore, by default, complacent in anti-Semitism's existence. This is dangerous. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. My name is Lynn Baskin. I am an equity educator and work as the Community Outreach Chair for the Jewish Community Relations Council of Greater Sacramento. I am also honored to serve as the Education Chair on the Executive Committee of the Sacramento branch of the NAACP. I speak for myself today. I'm a huge supporter of Dr. Weber in general. I actively supported this legislation, and I strongly believe in imbuing Black and brown children with pride through images and knowledge of their generational contributions to this country. This curriculum is written from the perspective of a college environment. Using this siloed and exclusive approach is inappropriate for so many reasons. These are our children and teenagers. Dr. John Powell of UC Berkeley's Haas Institute has a much better approach. Teach ethnic studies in a way that doesn't other. Othering can be ameliorated if we take an approach that teaches through shared experiences in 5 categories. Early settlers, indigenous peoples, refugees, immigrants, and with a special emphasis on stolen peoples of this country. Thank you.
Dr. Melissa Moreno with Save California Ethnic Studies. I want to acknowledge we're on indigenous land and we are in a majority Chicano Latino state, people of indigenous heritage. I thank Senator Weber and also Senator Allen for agreeing that it is important to have an ethnic studies requirement and that it is important to focus on the 4 ethnic groups that the Council of Ethnic Studies has already defined. And I also am here because the new social studies framework and our existing mandating curriculum does not sufficiently and accurately represent the 4 people of color. We would not be here if we were already included in the curriculum, and the model curriculum does say that people can shape the curriculum according to their own communities and demographics. I ask for transparency and accountability, even in this new process that's being proposed.
Hi, my name is Ellen Brodsky. I'm a member of Jewish Voice for Peace Bay Area, part of a national organization with over 350,000 supporters. I just want to point out that it's been documented, and I'm happy to share the article, that the attack on ethnic studies has been led by right-wing pro-Israeli interest groups not rooted in our communities, who claim to speak for all Jews, but who do not. Progressive Jews stand behind the current Model Ethnic Studies curriculum and understand the Arab American module as an essential component of marginalized communities of color. Revisions are part of the original process, and we support that as long as the defining focus of social justice struggles of communities of color remain intact, including Arab American studies. These attacks on this ethnic studies curriculum have endangered all of us by fueling Islamophobia and white supremacy.
We could have speakers 21 through 30. Please line up in front of the podium.
My name is Max Samarov. I speak on behalf of an educational nonprofit called Stand With Us, and as a citizen who plans to send my kids to public schools in this state. I'm also a first-generation immigrant from the former Soviet Union, where my grandmother was tortured for fighting discrimination against Jews on the basis of ethnicity and religion. I want you all to get this curriculum right so my community and others in this state never have to face the hate that my family did. And so I'd like to address some of the arguments being made to discourage you from truly fixing it. Some suggest that including more immigrant populations and communities of color would detract from ethnic studies. But the truth is, without these changes, this curriculum will fail to achieve its stated goals. Some say this is how we've always taught this subject. But doesn't that imply the bias and flaws in this draft are symptoms of a deeper systemic problem? The IQC should correct these flaws, not reproduce them in public schools across our state. For the sake of California's students, I hope you revise this curriculum so it meets the standards and definitions.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment.
I'm Maddie Carmel, representing the Jewish and Israel Advocacy Committee of Beth Am, a 1,600 family congregation in Los Altos Hills. Among our members are Albert, whose family was forced out of Egypt in 1956, along with 80,000 Jews whose families had lived there for more than 2,000 years. Glenn, whose grandparents and 7 aunts and uncles were murdered in the Holocaust. Lauren, whose family couldn't rent or buy a house in La Jolla in 1960 because of redlining. Dahlia, who fled anti-Semitic riots in Libya in 1967, the year her Jewish community was extinguished after 2,300 years. Natalie, whose boyfriend died at the Tree of Life Synagogue massacre. In college, I experienced violent anti-Semitism when attempts were made to burn down our Jewish sorority and swastikas were burned on our lawn. We're afraid that this draft curriculum will fuel more hate in California. We believe ethnic studies should build understanding among diverse communities. This draft fosters antagonism by including negative stereotypes and the hate-filled BDS movement, and by ignoring anti-Semitism, anti-hate crime.
Thank you. Thank you.
Barbara Wyndham from the same Beth Am committee. Our concerns with this ethnic studies draft are the BDS movement should not be lauded or listed in the curriculum. BDS deliberately creates a hostile environment for people who don't share its political views. Its leaders tout eliminating the only Jewish state. The House of Representatives overwhelmingly condemned the BDS, and ethnic studies is not a class for complex foreign policy debate. 2, the draft discusses hate crimes but omits 58% targeting Jews. Anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish violence are not abstract for us. Our kids are assaulted on college campuses and their dorms vandalized with swastikas. Threats are sent to Jewish preschools. Since the Poway massacre, going to temple or even a Jewish film festival means going under armed guard. Anti-Semitism is prevalent and deserves mention. 3, we've detailed in writing other concerns about negative Jewish references and sections of the draft not based on sound research. Please significantly revise the ethnic studies curriculum per our emails and per letters from the Legislative Jewish Caucus, AJC, Amchas, Alots, and Jemena.
Good morning.
My name is Teresa Montaño. I represent Save California Ethnic Studies. The current backlash directed at the model curriculum framework is evidence that many do not understand what we mean when we talk about fidelity to the field of ethnic studies. An attempt to focus on the racialized communities of color has been met with the all too familiar, but what about my oppression? Oppression of any sort is ugly and ought to be forgotten. But the focus on ethnic studies, racialized communities is an attempt to unmask the years of histories and stories of 4 racialized communities of colors whose stories have not been told. I applaud the superintendent's efforts to move forward in a new direction. I applaud the convening of the panel of ethnic studies experts to complete the work. I wonder if the expert practitioners who wrote the model curriculum will be included. I truly hope California's leaders truly value.
Morning, esteemed IQC. My name is Tolteca, co-chair of Model Curriculum Advisory Committee from February to April, and lead liaison of Save California Ethnic Studies, who today submitted a petition of over 8,000 signatures in support of the draft to remain as the core to IQC Chair Chow. Thank you. The most controversial parts of the draft, the fact is the most controversial parts of the draft account for far less than 1% of the total draft. Revisions are part of the process. Thank you for acknowledging that. And yes, we have recommended revisions ourselves. We are ethnic studies. We are principled and grounded in who we are. And yes, it is with open hearts and open minds that we are excited and greatly looking forward to dialoguing, working with, and ideally reaching consensus with all stakeholders necessary to reach a point where we can finally say, yes, we are here, we are welcome, we belong in K-12 curriculum and in Governor Newsom's California for all. And that goes for all in this room. Let's do this for California's better, grounded in ethnic studies. All here. Who would like to dialogue about this further? Who would like to help us build consensus moving forward? Who would like to see California prevail in a peaceful...
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for your comment.
Hi, my name is Dominique Williams. I'm a teacher here in Sacramento, and I'm in my 6th year of teaching. I think that the focus on 4 groups is part of being... I'm so sorry, I messed up. It's only a model. It's a model curriculum, and all teachers are going to teach specifically to the demographics in their class as necessary. In the world history standards, I taught world history in the 6 years of my teaching. There has been a lot of Jewish advocacy for inclusion in those standards because we know that teaching those issues is very important. In this model, in this conversation, I think BDS is being mischaracterized. In 1986, BDS was a movement to end apartheid in South Africa, and yet in the conversation that we're having right now, we're missing that nuance.
Thank you for your comment.
Good morning. My name is Lara Key Swamy. I'm a faculty member in Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State. I'm also the executive director of AROC, the Arab Resource and Organizing Center in San Francisco. On a daily basis, I see how ethnic studies literally saves lives. On a daily basis, I see the devastating impacts of Islamophobia and anti-Arab racism in the lives of thousands of Arab youth right here in the Bay, right next to you in the Bay Area. And for that reason, I want you all to take a serious look at what's happening today. The fight and the attack on ethnic studies is in fact a right-wing attack trying to instill fear-mongering, white supremacy, and Islamophobia. It is only when you take bold steps that you make real change in society, and there's not time to wait on ethnic studies. I will also just state that imagine an African-American studies without talking about apartheid South Africa and the BDS struggle there. Imagine an African-American studies that didn't address slavery, Rosa Parks, and the struggle for civil rights. Imagine a Latino-American study that didn't talk about UFW and the fight to boycott produce. That is essentially what's at stake right now. We must...
Thank you for your comment. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Thank you.
I'm Qian. Many of you will recognize me as the mayor of Oakland, but I was once the president of the California Association of Urban School Districts, the Asian American School Board Association, and the Council of Urban Boards of Education of the United States. But more importantly, 50 years ago, I was a 17-year-old student who was part of hundreds of students who started the ethnic studies movement at UC Berkeley and my friends at San Francisco State. That grew to 27 across the country and hundreds the next year. So we started with 4 groups. Now, clearly, ethnic studies can grow. Today in Oakland, we've added many units for our Yemeni and Arab students and our Pacific Island refugees from climate change in the world. Don't delay ethnic studies and your model curriculum. Please continue the work. Go after money now in the legislature, what it has for teacher training, add anti-Semitism, add other units, make.
Thank you. Time. Thank you. Time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Roy Tegeg. I am a 4th-year graduate student at UC Davis, as well as serving as the Director of Research at the Buehler Center for Filipinx Studies. I'm here today speaking in support of the ESMC draft and the Save Ethnic Study Coalition movement. And I wanted to say that, given the short time that I have, that I'm starting probably my 22nd year in school, right? And it wasn't until 2 years ago, so far enough into my graduate education, that I was actually exposed to ethnic studies by virtue of a fantastic professor and mentor, Dr. Robin Rodriguez at UC Davis, who took me under her wing to teach me about my community and the people that I come from. And we see students every day who come to our center that we started just last year, the first one in the entire nation, who are experiencing the same thing. They go through high school, they go through college, for the most part, not knowing about who they are and where they come from, and they need community.
Time. Thank you.
Angie Ba, PhD, Ethnic Studies. Your staff could only identify one UC-eligible high school course on Asian Americans in the entire state. One course, Asian Americans, the state of California. That's it. Clearly, we need more ethnic studies. Ethnic studies is based on the study of race and class. That's not ideology. That's based on U.S. law and government policy around people of color. As a former school board member, I'm proud that California has one of the first Holocaust curriculums in the entire country. Given recent events, we need to do more to strengthen that curriculum and educate more about anti-Semitism. We can do both that and provide quality education. California is strong enough to do that. And the historical reality of Arab Americans and Pacific Islanders mean that whenever possible, whenever those communities call for it, lesson plans need to be in place so that students from Arab backgrounds.
Time. Thank you.
If we could have speakers 31 through 40 line up in front of the podium, please.
Good morning. My name is Nelson Concordia. I'm here today as a parent, as a longtime San Francisco Unified School District educator, and as one of the writers of the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum, the labor of love that is currently being attacked. Stanford University did a study on our work in SFUSD that showed that ethnic studies works to increase student attendance, GPA, total credits accumulated, all this wonderful stuff. Those were my students at the center of that study. And I saw firsthand the power of ethnic studies to help young people make sense of who they are, from where they come, so that they can better make sense of their larger purpose, including my Jewish American students. 4 people who built the SFUSD program were a key part of developing the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum. And like SFUSD's Ethnic Studies work, the ESMC is committed to serving all of the children and families of our state. Hearing the comments from our Jewish community representatives, it is clear we need a Jewish American Studies course to...
Thank you. Time.
Good morning.
My name is Susan George. I am here representing a grassroots coalition of over 200 California progressive Zionists who support an ethnic studies program. One of the many problems with this draft was that the individuals who wrote it decided on their own to pick and choose who from Asian Americans should be included. It completely ignores South Asian Hindu Americans, Korean Americans, Armenian Americans, and Jews, a significant number of whom in California have no European ancestry at all. The ethnic studies curriculum needs to reflect California's population, needs to comply with the intent of the legislature in AB 2016 and with all sections of the California Educational Code. And the IQC needs to apply appropriate oversight to prevent the waste of taxpayer dollars and staff time that this draft produced. Our students deserve education, not indoctrination.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Kamangyan. I'm a department chair of the Teacher Education Department at the University of San Francisco. And as someone who was pushed out of LA Unified in the 10th grade, I'm here to advocate on behalf of the Ethnic Studies State Model Curriculum, the writers who authored it, and the advisory committee who consulted them. As empirical studies from Stanford and the University of Arizona has proven, ethnic studies has helped significantly improve the achievement of students who have historically been underserved in schools because it responds to the needs of their community and helps students see themselves reflected in the learning. If it wasn't for ethnic studies, I would have never become an educator in 1997 or a teacher of teachers today. Ethnic studies literally saved my life, and research has proven that it helps save the lives of others. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Claire Cheticle. I'm a parent. I'm a liberal, progressive Zionist, and I grew up in Oakland, California, and I graduated from San Francisco State University with a degree in sociology and minored in racism and sexism. You killed Jesus, baby killer, anti-Semitic trope heard more each day, poverty under a gray cloud of my grandparents' refugee survival of pogroms, where hidden stories of murdered siblings and parents were left behind. Those that made it here, their names assigned. Great-grandfather, a rabbi killed on the streets of New York City in 1922, run down by a horse and buggy. Those secrets held in my DNA revealed that I am in part Mizrahi, North African, and Sephardic blood, the story of my grandmother who wore heavy powder to an attempt to conceal her dark skin and Middle Eastern identity. To be a Jew was not celebrated. It was hidden under the scrawny Christmas tree of assimilation. My grandfather knew that leaving behind his culture was essential. After all, his father was killed in a hate crime here in the United States. He moved to California and farmed land.
Time. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Time. Time. Thank you. Time.
Hello, honorable members of the committee. Thank you so much for having us here today. I also just want to say ethnic studies is not indoctrination, it's history and it's pride. My name is Sofia Arman. I'm a scholar at the University of California, San Diego in the Department of Ethnic Studies, specializing in Armenian American Studies and broader Middle Eastern American Studies. I came here today urging you to hear the voices of our community. We strongly urge the committee to take meaningful steps to make sure that Armenian American Studies and experience be included in the proposed California Ethnic Studies model curriculum. I want to emphasize that we strongly support the inclusion of ethnic studies. The Armenian American experience in the United States is one that cannot be ignored, and particularly in California. We are over 1 million people in the United States and over 500,000 in this state alone. The American Armenian experience means that our students need to hear their own history. Many Armenian American students are immigrants, children of immigrants, and English language learners. They have been...
Time. Time. Thank you. Time. Time. Please, your time is over. Thank you. Before we go to the next speaker, I would like to say something. A lot of you have come very far, have made a lot of travel arrangements, and we want to give everyone their time. And so we expect all participants coming up to the podium to abide by that time that we have allotted everyone out of respect for everyone here. And so we will be calling time in. Please, at that time, we will ask that you give the next speaker, again, the same opportunity you've been given. Thank you.
I'm Mike Williams. I'm chairman of DQ University. I'm going to make this pretty quick. But I don't know if you are aware on this panel that every form of education, congressional act of education towards Native Americans, that includes our people of the South, the Mexicans, has been a form of genocide. From the border schools to Terminator tribes where they could bring people in the cities to get educated. Even up to the day with Indian education programs where they don't only allow federally recognized kids to be educated in their Native studies programs. And I even know up to 1970, there was only 4 slots for Mexicans and 4 slots for Natives in the UC systems, in most UC schools. So we really need this ethnic study programs. You know, we've been denied this stuff. We need the truth to start coming out for all peoples, all ethnic people. We've been burying the truth for our children, and it's hurting our children. You know, they need something to be proud of about the history, who they really.
Good morning, John Wyndham. I'm a product of California's public schools, as were my brothers and my children. And my mother spent 30 years teaching in our schools. I thoroughly endorse ethnic studies, and I want it to succeed. I've read the model curriculum, and I found it very useful. Sadly, however, it fails for 2 reasons. First, it covers some groups, but not others. Beyond the original groups, what criteria are used to choose new groups? These should be clearly stated and vetted to avoid having politics play a role in this. Secondly, the lesson plans are unbalanced, misleading, and hurtful. I should say some of the lesson plans. Others I thought were very good. For example, at least 2 plans require students to become activists for teacher-mandated positions. This is wrong. Our schools should never dictate students' political stances. Also, some of the lesson plans lack balance and take cheap shots at specific groups or entities. And
time.
Hi, my name is Amy Ritchell. I am a teacher at SFUSD and I'm proudly to say I was one of the advisory committee for the model curriculum. And I'm here because ethnic studies is love, community, family, and future. And I am ethnic studies. Ethnic studies for me is what made me dedicated to become a public school teacher. A teacher of ethnic studies now for over 10 years in SFUSD, and now part of a team to create curriculum instruction for the city of San Francisco. Ethnic studies is where you live, Mommy. That is. And this is where my daughter comes from. My daughter is a product of ethnic studies. My daughter is a product of love, community, and she is our future. And it hurts me deeply when I hear that this is a movement of hate because it is far from the truth.
Hi, my name is Kyle Beckham, Dr. Kyle Beckham. I'm representing myself. I'm a former teacher in San Francisco Unified School District. I was there the very first day that after Supervisor Eric Marr called for an exploratory committee to explore the possibility of developing curriculum for San Francisco public schools in ethnic studies. We have over 10 years of experience teaching ethnic studies, of curriculum. There are zero incidents of hate, crimes, anti-Semitism from in the literally thousands of hours of teaching and actual practice of ethnic studies. To speak to that, to a point another person made earlier, this has shown the need for specific curriculum and a specific process to address the concerns of the Jewish American community. And I encourage them to engage in the curriculum development process that we desperately need to continue, that is currently ongoing.
If we could have speakers 41 through 50, please line up in front of the podium.
My name is Shekinah Larks. I work at B'Kol Hashon, which means in every tongue in Hebrew, and educates the ethnic and racial diversity of the Jewish community. As a Black Jewish woman, I grew up with most of my identity excluded from my education. This curriculum asks me to choose my racial identity and leave my religious identity at the door. Both of them are essential to who I am. We estimate that 20% of the U.S.'s Jewish community identify as non-white or non-European. Viewing Jews as only white erases part of the Jewish population. In your effort to reduce Eurocentrism in the California state curriculum, please do not whitewash my community by enforcing Eurocentric views of Jewish identity. I stand here today as a representative of the Black Jewish experience. I stand here today as an example of the interdependence of race, religion, and ethnicity. I stand here today as a daughter of Oakland, a legacy of civil rights, and an advocate for the power of social justice and civil discourse.
Hello, my name is Aria Weinberg. I'm also with B'Kol Hashon, and it's an organization that does within the Jewish community what ethnic studies intends for California, highlighting diversity, elevating marginalized voices, and working against the tendency toward a Eurocentric understanding of Jewish history and identity. I'd like to focus on one of the stated goals of ethnic studies, perhaps the most important goal of the curriculum and one that serves all students, fostering a sense of inclusion for all. Regrettably, as it stands, the proposed curriculum is likely to accomplish the opposite, fostering isolation, division, and exclusion. In an effort to focus on certain ethnic groups and not on and only on certain permutations of those ethnic groups, many other ethnic groups are left out wholesale, while the subgroups that exist within the targeted groups are forced to ignore the complexity of their identities in favor of inclusion in the macro group. Identity is complex, and ignoring this intersectionality reinforces stereotypical notions of identity. The exclusion of religion as a determinant factor in the development of ethnic studies also only leaves out groups like Jews, but denies the existence of very real diversity of experience within recognized.
Good morning. First and foremost, as a Black Jew, I am so proud to see that these steps are being taken to implement not only tolerance, but also acceptance and open-mindedness into our schools. And for that, I thank you. But as I am proud to see my African-American heritage being represented in the curriculum, I was disappointed to see how little Jews were being mentioned in it. Being Jewish is a part of my identity, and I feel cheated. When Charlottesville had its horrible white nationalist protest, do not forget they were screaming blood and soil, a direct attack on my people. I applaud this curriculum, but if one majorly oppressed group is being left out, so are countless others. So if we want to eradicate hate, we must first include all ethnic groups, because if we don't, our future generations will be uneducated. So ask yourself, how will you change the curriculum to be inclusive of all cultures so that nobody feels misrepresented? Thank you.
So what's your name?
Aiden Mosley.
Good morning. My name is Renson Dallas, and I am an ethnic studies educator for Panay Pinoy Educational Partnerships for 2nd and 3rd graders. I have personally experienced ethnic studies impacting my life and my students' lives by helping us understand our identities, our histories, and served as spaces for us to learn how to practice and learn empathy. I support this draft of the model curriculum because I know it is rooted in empowering all youth of color, literally saving lives for students of all ages, including mine, and promotes open hearts and open minds for all and all the intersections that we can embody. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Erin from Pinoy Panay Educational Partnerships. Ethnic studies centering the voices and lives of Black and Brown people will not stir up hate. Anyone that knows the true essence of ethnic studies knows the level of unity, community, self-realization, and acknowledgement that comes with it. Keep the model curriculum with its current framework and purpose. Just like our communities, we're open to dialogue.
Good morning. I am Dr. Arlene Das Magwall, and I'm the director for Pinoy Panay Educational Partnerships, and I teach ethnic studies at San Francisco State University. 50 years ago, the Black Student Union of the Third World Liberation Front organized and led a series of actions against systemic discrimination. Protesters spoke out against lack of access, misrepresentation, and the overall neglect of Indigenous peoples and people of color within the curriculum. I strongly urge you to keep the current model curriculum draft, maintain the ethnic studies curricular framework with disciplinary knowledge, language, and pedagogy. The struggle 50 years ago still continues as we stand here today, defending what it means to put our stories in the center of curriculum. If we as educators are looking to change the colonial education that exists today, then I urge you to maintain the current curriculum. Thank you.
If I could have speakers 51 through 60 line up in front of the podium. Thank you.
My name is Mario Galvan. I'm here with the Ethnic Studies Now Coalition of Sacramento, and I'm a retired teacher. I want to begin by saying that I think that what we're doing here in California is really a paradigm shift in education, in the whole history of education in the United States, which, as we all know, has been Eurocentric heavily. And to open this up is to groups that have been marginalized, and starting with the Native Americans here, black people who were brought over as slaves, immigrants from many other countries. This is a tremendous thing we're doing, and I'm encouraged actually to hear that even the people here from the Jewish community who are, I don't see it as an attack, I see it as a criticism, and it's just, but I want to point out this is a model curriculum. This is not a solid thing that's going to be imposed on everyone. This is a step, shows the direction, a way to do this, and it's very important.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Margarita Bertavila. I'm professor of education at Sacramento State, a member of Ethnic Studies Now Sacramento Coalition, and a proud member of the California Faculty Association. As a teacher educator, I see how my students grapple and eventually resist with integrating the realities, experiences, historical and contemporary issues that relate to their students with their instruction. Why does this happen? Because they don't understand it, and most often their own educational experiences was so one-dimensional that they don't see a need for it. The Ethnic Studies model curriculum would benefit prospective students that would want to be teachers because they would enter programs like ours with a holistic perspective. However, this cannot be done if we are not willing to grapple with the truths that have been made invisible. The Ethnic Studies model curriculum fosters an opportunity to engage, making experiences, realities, histories visible in order to reflect upon it at a personal level, but also at a larger societal level with the outcome to create change, a change that seeks equity, justice for the common good. I press upon the State Board of Education, Superintendent Thurman.
My name is Rabbi Serena Eisenberg. I'm the Northern California Director of the American Jewish Committee and also President of the Northern California Board of Rabbis. And I also have 4 kids who've attended California public high schools. I first want to start by thanking you so much for your dedication and respect and wisdom as you discern a path forward. My kids identify as Middle Eastern from a grandmother who fled Syria and Egypt as a refugee. And so I want to urge you to consider in the draft going forward that Judaism is not just a religion, but the Jewish people are also an ethnicity. And I urge you in the revised curriculum to acknowledge and educate the children of our community about the virulent dangers of anti-Semitism, not just from the white supremacists, but also from the left and also from extremist fundamentalism. We have to be vigilant. I also encourage you to
My name is Allison Tintianco Cobales, and I am standing here today because ethnic saved my life. Ethnic studies saved my life. And I bring with me my ancestors every time I walk into spaces that talk about ethnic studies. I have been a professor of ethnic studies, Asian American studies, and education for over 20 years at San Francisco State University, and I'm the founder of Pinay and Pinoy Educational Partnerships and Community Responsive Education. I'm also one of the co-chairs of the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum Advisory Committee, who only had a chance to meet 3 times for 2 days each. And we all believed that there was going to be minor changes, but we also believed that there was a need for complexity around ethnic studies because people of color are complex. And we also felt like there was a need to make sure that the curriculum focused on Native peoples and people of color because that is what was fought for 50 years ago. The language in the model curriculum has been described as jargon and overly complex, but we are complex, just as physics and chemistry are complex. Would you throw away the periodic table?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Carmel Johnson. I'm just here as a parent. I have 2 children in Santa Clara County Public Schools. 2 requests to you as you go forward in the very, very important work of revising this curriculum. One is a request for acknowledging truths even when they don't fit with the party line. I was amazed to see that despite repeated references to capitalism as a tool of oppression, that there was no acknowledgement made anywhere in the curriculum that we have large populations of people in California who are here because their ancestors were run out of their countries of origin by regimes that were trying alternatives to capitalism. The entire Vietnamese community in California comes from people who fled under very dangerous, conditions for their life. Because of enforced socialism. So I'd like to see just more complexity and more truth, please, in the curriculum. And the second request has to do with
Hi, my name is Lupita, and I'm a concerned parent from Davis Joint Unified School District. We work closely with the district trying to implement K through 12 ethnic studies within our schools to promote diversity and to stop some of the bullying that's happening within our community. I'm very concerned that ethnic studies curriculum might be stalled. We've been waiting decades for this. I grew up not even knowing about my own history as a Mexican American until I got to college. And it would be a shame for my son to have to do the same. If you guys could please use logic, critical thinking, rationale, please, when deciding and not allowing political factors to come in to censor. We need ethnic studies now. And if we need to provide more perspectives, so be it. But to stall the ethnic studies model curriculum any further would be a detriment to our children's future. We need historically accurate reflections of our community.
Good morning. My name is Harjeet Singh. I'm a community organizer and educator with Jakarta Movement, which is a CBO that represents the Punjabi Sikhs throughout California. I fully support ethnic studies and thank everyone for their efforts on this curriculum. It's so important for our students across California to learn about the diverse communities that make the state great. However, the model curriculum in its current form is missing contributions from a key community, the Punjabi Sikh community. Punjabi is one of the 15 most spoken languages in California, yet in the model curriculum there is no mention of the word Punjabi and only 2 mentions of the word Sikh. Even so, it is seen as an afterthought to other communities. Our community is so marginalized, we didn't even know about this proposed curriculum until last week, until after public comment period had ended. That's why I'm here today, to ensure that the Punjabi Sikh narrative is not excluded. I don't want to take away from the contributions and experiences of other communities. I simply ask you to make a great
time. Thank you.
Saludos, buenos días. My name is Nicole Martinez. I'm a Spanglish-speaking Chicana indigenous woman. I grew up in California public schools. I've been a public school teacher for over 12 years and also a community-based educator. I am also a mother of an upcoming student who will be in our system. I support ethnic studies and those who have supported and helped to work on this current curriculum. I believe that is necessary and it is important as life and death for ourselves and our community. Historically and politically, our schools have systematically denied people of color education, rights to basic things like literacy, language, and our own cultural and political histories. So right now, California has a majority of students of color. Our curriculum needs to reflect those students and be inclusive. And I think adding more is fine, but definitely a lot has been missing for a really long time. And this is a way to start making that happen. So please support it. Thank you.
Hi, and I'm Dina Mirabeccan, and where is he next? I'm ethnic studies.
Do I get her a minute as well, since she took less than a minute? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Good morning, members of the commission. My name is Ramon Tash. I'm the president of the Syrian American Association of Southern California. And I'm here we had joined a coalition of Jewish, Armenian, Greek, Hindu, and Korean civic organizations addressing the concerns about the proposed curriculum that I know was recently scrapped and that you are now revising. And we felt that it didn't accurately reflect California's diverse population and recognize some communities at the expense of others. And it failed to convey the beautiful, rich diversity and ethnicity and religion that comprise the Middle East. And one example is, of course, the Assyrian people. And as you may know, we're an ethnic group indigenous to the Middle East with a history spanning nearly 7,000 years. Numbering about 2 to 3 million in the entire world, we speak our own language. It's also known as Neo-Aramaic or Syriac. As far as the history of the Assyrian people here in California, they've been living here since the early 1900s as the first settlers moved into the Central Valley, Bay Area, and Southern California regions. They were forced to escape the cloud of persecution and genocide at the hands of the Ottoman Empire over a century ago, where over 2/3 of Assyrians...
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Ramona Tasco. I'm a medical doctor, and I'm a graduate of UCSF School of Medicine. 50 years ago, I was the first student arrested at San Francisco State University as we fought to establish the College of Ethnic Studies. I'm here to support the Ethnic Studies curriculum enforcement, and I want to encourage that there be a positive vote for curriculum that attaches for K through 12. It's a piece of the agenda that we fought for 50 years ago that we have not yet realized, but we know its benefit. I'm a product of the fight for and the success that came with that strike. I'm not only a medical doctor, but I'm currently the president of the UCSF Medical School Alumni Association, and I'm the CEO for a company.
Thank you. Thank you. Time. Thank you.
Everybody that I have.
So we want to thank everyone, each and every one of you, who have taken time out of your day to come here.
I'm speaker who wants to speak, so
oh,
sorry to interrupt. But they're apparently just signing up as we speak.
Oh, they're signing up? Oh, okay. All right, so we'll hold off for just a second.
Has everyone present had the opportunity to speak if they have wanted to? We just want to make sure that we do a survey, make sure everybody here who's wanted to speak has been able to. All right, here comes our last speaker.
Good morning, Guillermo Gomez, San Diego. I've been a public school teacher for 25 years, from first grade all the way to graduate courses at San Diego State. I'm also one of the members of the writing team. I want to start with Mayim-inspired poem, "En Lakesh, you are my other me. If I do harm to you, I do harm to myself. But if I love and respect you, I love and respect myself." Some people are saying that the curriculum was divisive or is not including other folks of the community. But just to remind you that 76% of the student population in California public schools is people of color. So if we're not including them, we have to throw the other curriculum for the last 200 years because we have not been included as Black and brown communities. This has been a project of love for many people. It brings the community voices and brings our students' voices. And I want you, as we go forward, to make sure that the people that go forward drafting the curriculum, they are actual practitioners in the classroom.
I'm told we have more coming as well.
Okay, we're just going to take a short, maybe like a 10-minute stretch break, and then reconvene in 10 minutes. So it is 10:15, so 10:20. 25, sorry.
Test, 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 test.
Probably because they're not feeding right into the mic.
Yeah.
So
Because
they're not
test,
hitting
test,
that
test,
top
This
point.
is not. Yeah. This is not even like.
All right, everyone, we're reconvening. We're reconvening the meeting of the subject matter committee. Didn't work. We will be reconvening the subject matter committee for history, social science. Do it one more time. Okay, we're going to do it one more time here. All right, if everyone could please find a place to sit. And we will continue with our history, social science subject matter committee hearing public comment. Dr. McDonald, would you like to direct us, the
Sure.
public?
I don't have a new sign-up sheet, but I know there were a number of people who signed up during the break, so I would just invite anyone who has a number for public comment who has not yet spoken to come up and line up in front of the podium.
Okay, we have a list coming up.
I have 7 more speakers who have signed up to provide public comment. If those 7 could produce themselves and begin giving public comment, that would be great.
Cindy, can you check out front to see if those 7...
A 91 up. Okay.
Hello. My name is Jada Kidachai, a student from San Francisco State University. I'm here to support ethnic studies because I have felt and witnessed how transformative this curriculum is for students. Ethnic studies allow me to explore and appreciate the complex gaps in history that are missing. To support ethnic studies is to allow communities of color to envision a world where their stories are seen. Teresa Siangatonu said, "When ethnic studies, it is a lesson in survival." So imagine what the world would look like if that lesson is taught early. Thank you.
Well, thank you. My name is Karen Stiller, and I am a former social worker and a parent of 2 children in our public schools. I strongly support the inclusion of ethnic studies. I just have concerns with a few parts of it. The model curriculum, by taking its approach from the university level, does not consider the massive amount of authority that a K-12 teacher has over its students. A student is compelled to attend class, to participate even when the content is presented in a non-safe way. And then they're graded on it. What will happen, for example, if my Jewish child only hears about Jews in Israel mentioned using stereotypes or classic anti-Semitic tropes or a global political strategy to delegitimize it? Or, there was another exercise in there when a child is asked to publicly identify themselves as a victim of sexual assault in a classroom exercise. I think there are a few key parts of this curriculum that really need to be amended. All of these things will take place in a classroom where a student is compelled.
My name is Nick Hillad. I'm a ethnic studies teacher for 15 years and one of the program coordinators for San Francisco Unified School District's ethnic studies program. When I was taking ethnic studies at Brown University, we had courses in critical whiteness studies. There is and should be a place to discuss the construction of whiteness and white identity ethnic groups within ethnic studies. But that's not the focus of ethnic studies. The focus is on communities of color who have largely been systematically disenfranchised and excluded from our instruction and curriculum, because the goal of ethnic studies is not and will never be merely multicultural studies. It instead needs to be about including groups, not to include them, but to reimagine relationships of power and systems that continue to dispossess the most structurally vulnerable populations. Don't make ethnic studies multicultural studies. That is to ignore its roots. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Celeste Francisco, they, them, and theirs, and I'm representing Panay Pinoy Educational Partnerships as a teacher at Skyline College. I am a master's student in Asian American Studies. Ethnic Studies is giving me a future. As a trans non-binary Filipinx American, Ethnic Studies has given me a space to not only exist, but to thrive. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Arston Sambile. I currently teach ethnic studies in the San Francisco Unified, and as someone who grew up in the California public school system, I believe that ethnic studies should be in the curriculum statewide. It has taught me about the history of not only my people, but of my community, and I strongly believe that our story should be more than just a paragraph within the textbook. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rosaria Macahilas, and I'm a part of Pinoy Panay Educational Partnerships. I'm a student of ethnic studies, and I'm currently a teacher of ethnic studies, teaching kindergartners. They learn about their identity and build community with each other. I was first introduced to ethnic studies in college, but I wish I had the opportunity to learn about ethnic studies as young as elementary. Ethnic studies is important to me because it teaches me to empower myself, my family, and my community. Ethnic studies is resistance, it's healing, and it educates to liberate. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shelby Chan Kwong Spears. As a queer mixed-race woman, I have a right to know more about my people and the diaspora of other peoples, past the way we've been oppressed. We are more than just slavery. We are more than the communist countries we may or may not have come from. Ethnic studies is not just our stories, but our way of life and our way of being. In these classrooms, it allows our students to create an identity past the oppressions that their ancestors have faced. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the public? Okay. Okay. So at this time, we want to deeply express our thanks and gratitude to everyone who has taken time to travel here to express their feelings, and so we thank you for that. We'd like to note that earlier we expressed that the Commission will not be taking action on the model curriculum today. However, we do look forward to seeing a revised draft at a future meeting. Moving forward, is there anything that the IQC members would like the CDE to consider as they move forward in the revision process?
As we move forward in the revision process, some things I'd like us to consider is, and we've heard it from many of the different speakers here, is to again define what ethnic study is, maybe in the very beginning of the curriculum. Not to remove some of the language as Generation X, Latin X, but to give it more of a definition, maybe as part of the wraparound in the model curriculum. I also think it's important that we consider and work with the panel, that expert panel that was part of that process. We heard from several of them here. I feel, and I know that the idea of time was here, was that we continue to work with those practitioners, since they are our K-12 teachers, that this will be enacted, that they weren't really given sufficient time. You know, they already talked about 3-day meetings 2 times, that they have that opportunity to continue to be the voice, because they are the voices of our children in our classroom. I really appreciate the legislators to reconsider and take a look at ethnic studies, but to remain what ethnic studies is as defined by the law in which they have passed ethnic study model curriculum. And I'm very passionate, just like everybody else here, that we all need to understand where we come from, where we're going, and how we're going to be productive citizens. I know I am a marginalized person and have grown up that way. Other areas I'd like to see is increase of Native American. As a Native American, not from California, as you all know, the assimilation of my grandparents were part of the boarding house and removal acts. I'd like to have that more included into that, and also my brothers and sisters of the Asian Pacific region to tell their stories. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Munoz. Yes, Commissioner Wu.
I appreciate that the CDE has a plan going forward to change this draft and make it more inclusive of the peoples who are requesting to be included. Is there a way to change our process such that we can create another draft and then send it out again as we do with frameworks?
Yes, that is part of the process. So during the next many months, we will be convening an ethnic studies expert panel. It is a panel discussion, and one of the things that they will be discussing is what is ethnic studies, the definition of ethnic studies. That is one question that they will be tackling during this panel. We will be learning from this panel, and what we learn from the panel will help inform the revisions that we make to the current draft. We are also going to be visiting schools that have current ethnic studies programs to learn from the teachers that are teaching those courses what their challenges were, what their needs are in guidance from the state level to help spread ethnic studies across the state, because that is the ultimate goal, is to help schools that do not already have an ethnic studies program to know and understand how to implement a new ethnic studies program. So that is, all of those pieces will be a part of the process. Once we are done with that process, we will bring to the IQC the new revised draft to be put out for another public comment review period.
And then I just want to re-clarify, because I thought I heard in the earlier presentation that there would be more opportunity for feedback in the form of perhaps focus groups, and just so that, you know, in hearing that there is a need and a want for a transparent process.
Yes, so we will be conducting teacher focus groups. We have not identified exactly where or when they will be, but those will be conducted and advertised. But they will be focus groups, so we will be focusing on teachers to hear again from our practitioners. I do want to make it clear that the advisory committee has completed their work. They completed their work when they completed the initial draft of the model curriculum. So now advisory committee members are members of the public that can be a part of any of the input processes that we have put in place and we will be putting in place for reviewing the model curriculum.
Any other members of the commission that would like to make comment?
Yeah, I first want to start by just saying that the conversation that we're having, as you know, all the opinions that are being expressed and the weight that a lot of this content holds for a lot of individuals, including myself, is a conversation that hardly any states out there are having. So I first want to applaud everybody from the CDE to the advisory committee to members of the public that came to speak today and that submitted public comment, because this is an important conversation that we're on the forefront in terms of in our state and on these topics. I also want to recommend that the CDE keep in mind that whoever is part of the ongoing process of discussing this and revising this curriculum is fully aware of the existing curricular frameworks, specifically world history frameworks and United States history frameworks, because some of the specific historical events that have been mentioned today are in online public comment, and some of the foreign policy issues have been covered in those frameworks. So I think it's important to remember that as we talk about ethnic studies, this is a model curriculum that doesn't supplant what's already being taught. And I think a lot of individuals within education, outside of education, might not realize the extent to which some particular topics are already being taught. So it's important to keep in mind that ethnic studies and world history curriculum, these students will be receiving both at some point. So hopefully both are continue to be as inclusive as possible, but just keep that in mind.
Okay, any other members of the subject matter committee or the commission that would like to make comment?
I just simply want to say I appreciate all of the comments and obviously the interest that folks have in ethnic studies or in this particular curriculum that's been expressed. And, you know, I have been asked by the superintendent to participate in as an expert to the panel or to the board in terms of ethnic studies. I've spent the last 45 years as a faculty member, professor, as well as a director and a chair of the National Council for Black Studies, and on and on and on, in terms of developing curriculum, and was responsible for the founding of Africana Studies at San Diego State. So I've spent a lot of time dealing with many of the issues that people have raised here today, and it's interesting to hear them because there are answers to those issues that they raise. And I think it is important too, as you mentioned, even on the legislature, that we've passed and done a number of, as folks have mentioned, a number of specific curricular kinds of issues, whether it's the Armenian genocide, when I was on the school board, the Holocaust issues, all those things are already embedded in our curriculum and often being taught, whether it's taught at the level people want or whatever, that's another question itself. So we have to look back. And so I'm hoping that what we'll be able to do is to look at what the intent was in terms of the actual proposal that the legislature put forward with regards to ethnic studies. Some of the groups that are supportive of it, the Chicano legislators and others, are concerned that we have to look and see why this was proposed in the first place, because of the absence of information and what that means in the lives of young people. So when you hear young people saying this saved my life, it has some significance in terms of what history does for individuals, and also what happens when you're not included in the history at all. And so, so there are a lot of issues to be addressed. I've just because I am at the legislature, have met with a number of members of the various Jewish community in particular, and there are some concerns about the curriculum and issues of certain things that should be in and out. So I hope we don't throw the whole process out. I think those who wrote the curriculum, as I've talked to some folks, or even at the state board, that probably, as someone has presented, 99% of the curriculum is probably pretty good. If you went out and rewrote the whole curriculum again, you'd probably have even more problems than you have right now. So you have to be careful in what you're trying to do. But like any process that happens with curriculum, you have the process out there, I hope, and there's time for an input from individuals. You figure out whether or not what's in it is necessary or not, what creates more confusion or what creates clarity, those kinds of things, and then you decide what to extract from it and what to add to it. You may not throw the whole thing out unless it's really toxic, and most folks have said that the vast majority is good. So I'm hoping in this process that we'll figure those pieces out in a way that will help people understand exactly what the legislature was attempting to do when they authorized the writing of the curriculum at that time, but also a recognition that many other entities already have, many other districts already have an ethnic studies curriculum that they're implementing right now. And so I think it would be important to look at that to make sure there is some alignment between what they're doing and what you want as a statewide curriculum that's there. But many have taken the charge and done it at their local level because they've had the opportunity for years to actually offer an ethnic studies curriculum. But this is a statewide effort, which makes it a little bit different, and obviously will have to be broader in its perspective and giving a little bit more flexibility to the individual districts that have already developed the curriculum. But it's interesting, as I said, after 45 years of hearing the same conversation over and over, I hear it again. And I appreciate that the folks are still interested in ethnic studies. So obviously it has a real need in the state, in this state particularly, and maybe even across the country. So I look forward to the conversations that are there, and hopefully I can be of some assistance on the expert panel, but also here on the IQC. Mm-hmm.
Senator Allen.
Well, I want to associate myself with a lot of what Assemblymember Weber said, and I think you've really got an extraordinary resource in her. Someone who has spent so much of her career working in this space, and but who also brings to the conversation a really broad political perspective, in her role in the legislature and as an elected official. And so I feel really good about her leadership role in all of this. I agree. There's a ton of good stuff in here, and I think that was acknowledged by many of the folks who read the full curriculum. I don't think there's any question in people's minds about a lot of the really well-written lessons that are in the curriculum. There have been people who've asked me, is this an anti-Semitic curriculum? And I just think it's not. I don't think that's a fair way to characterize it. I think there were things in the curriculum that were very problematic and that really did raise anti-Semitic concerns and some tropes that have been repeated. And I think those are the things that I know the Jewish Caucus wrote about in its letter, and a lot of those things have been brought up today. But I will say that I'm heartened when I hear everybody seems to agree that those kinds of things ought to be out of the curriculum, and that they ought to be revised, and that there ought to be a way for us to make sure that this really is truly about mutual understanding and people coming together. Part of what makes this difficult in some respects is that it's so intersectional. There's so many, the curriculum, and I know this has been a big debate at the legislature too. I was just speaking outside with a couple of advocates for ethnic studies, and we were talking about how there's been through history a long-standing concern that these topics have not been adequately addressed in the mainstream history and social studies curriculum. And of course, there's that then sparks a discussion, right? Is the answer to do a much better job of making sure that it's better embedded in the existing curriculum? But then at the same time, there are folks who say, well, there are so many standalone issues here that need to really be focused on separately, that it really merits having kind of a standalone course. It's true that there are a lot of good things that are in various aspects of curriculum with relation to genocide and with relation to civil rights. Whether or not they end up getting taught in the classrooms are up to the local districts and the local teachers, and I think that's part of the concern. Part of what makes this particular discussion so important is that it's happening within the broader context of the legislature's decision as to whether to make ethnic studies a statewide graduation requirement. But there's a lot of stuff in here that intersperses and interplays with American literature, with history, with economics. I mean, there was one speaker who talked about the way that the curriculum treats the conversation about capitalism, and I think that certainly was brought up in some of the press accounts, and that's I think a worthy conversation for us to have with students about economic systems. That of course interplays with other broader social study curricula and the economics curricula too. So that's going to be a difficult thing for us to kind of figure out how to address in a fair way that also does legitimately bring up some of the concerns about the way that capitalism has played out and how it has helped to impact disparity in our society. There's some really good stuff out there that I think has been mentioned. Facing History in Ourselves, I think, could help to add in some additional nuance to the curriculum. I do continue to believe that this curriculum ought to be centralized on the 4 key communities of color, but I do think there's a lot of broader stories that can help to contextualize. I bought myself a copy of James Banks' Teaching Strategies for Ethnic Studies, and I have been reading through it. It's a fascinating work, a seminal work in this area, as I understand. And I will point out that there is a separate chapter focused on Jewish Americans. There's another one focused on Euro Americans. They don't dominate. I don't think they ought to dominate, but I do think that there ought to be an opportunity for us to bring in lots of different stories as we are still focusing on the key stories of the 4 key communities of color. And that's going to be a kind of a nuanced thing, and every teacher is going to have to play that out in their classroom on their own terms based on the demographics of their own community. And that's going to be tricky. I do want to also reiterate your comment about Native Americans, and I continue to believe that there is appallingly little taught in our classrooms about the genocide of Native Americans right here in the state of California. It is an extraordinary story, and I commend everyone in this room to the book American Genocide, that I think very systematically makes the case that there was a genocide carried out by our state government, by people whose portraits are still up in the Capitol. It's a pretty appalling story, and one that I think is given extraordinarily short shrift. We seem to stop substantive discussion of California history at the gold rush and never seem to go further. And of course, the most awful chapter of that story happens right after the gold rush. And so that's another thing that, if we figure out, it's got to be taught somewhere, whether it's here or whether it's, I think it'd be an appropriate place here. I also think it ought to be in our history classes more intensely as well. So I want to thank everybody for their participation. I think all the comments were very well taken. I think everyone's been able to hear each other. I really appreciate that. So a lot of these topics are incredibly difficult. They're painful. You heard the pain of people who stood up here and talked about oppression that they've experienced, that their families have experienced, and ultimately this ought to be about increasing empathy for everybody. If we really understood how much our own family histories, how similar some of the stories are. That the same kind of terrible vitriol that was launched against the ancestors of Italian American students back in the late 19th century is now being launched against folks coming up from Latin America or elsewhere. I think we just increase our empathy for everyone and have a better understanding of where we're all coming from in our mutual humanity. And so I think that's the beauty of what we're trying to do here with this curriculum. And I really do continue to have a lot of optimism and hope that we will craft something that will be something that really we can all be proud of, that will help to lift up voices that have been underheard, and that will really help to continue to change lives, particularly in those communities that have been so marginalized in our society. And so I want to thank the folks who made their comments. I want to thank people who participated in this process up until now. I want to thank the folks who will help to make this curriculum stronger. And I look forward to this discussion. It's not going to be an easy one, but I think it's a very worthwhile one that will help to make our state a better place.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Allen. Thank you, Assemblymember Weber, and all of those that have made comments as well. Again, we echo the sentiments, and we want to give an opportunity for our State Board members to also make comment at this time.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. Again, Feliz Ortiz Icon, board member and liaison to Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum, or the Advisory Committee. I want to start by appreciating the Advisory Committee for this model curriculum, crafting it. We also want to appreciate the writers. I want to make it clear that from the State Board perspective, there is not a question of whether there is merit or value to ethnic studies. There is value, there's merit. This is not an attempt to pull the plug on this. But in fact, what we want is to make sure that we're able to implement it. And we want to make sure that there is a model curriculum that districts of all sizes can take and run with it and implement it, because we know the value that this is for our students. As somebody who has a degree in Chicano studies, I understand that ethnic studies is not indoctrination, but it's history, it's validation. It's rigorous education that leads to college, career, and civic engagement. I also understand some of the concerns around making ethnic studies multicultural education. And I want to emphasize some of our principles, ethnic studies, model curriculum principles by the State Board that were adopted. In particular, promote critical thinking and rigorous analysis of history, systems of oppression, and the status quo. We want to make sure we highlight justice, race, equity, ethnicity, indigeneity. So by having these guidelines and these principles that were adopted by the State Board, we're not looking to take ethnic studies, make ethnic studies simply multicultural education. We want to make sure that our students do have the critical thinking skills to interrogate the systems of oppression, but we also know that it has to be done in a way that is inclusive, promotes self and collective empowerment, which is one of our guiding principles. And we look forward to working with educators, experts in making sure that we get this model curriculum, that we use a lot of what's already in there, like the redlining chapter, United Farm Workers, we have the Chinese railroad workers. There's a lot of good content in our current model curriculum, and we want to make sure that we broaden that. Thank you.
So Eileen Strauss, Vice President of the State Board of Education and liaison to the Instructional Quality Commission. So first, I want to thank the many speakers for taking their time to show up today to provide really thoughtful, emotional, and clear comments to all of us that I believe we all heard. We hear people, we've seen them, and we, as part of the IQC and as part of the State Board, so appreciate the thoughts and the feedback. For you members of IQC, the board so appreciates your commitment to serving as our advisory commission. It's a really important process to us before the final document will come to the State Board.
And the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum Advisory Committee, the State Board very much appreciates the diligent and impassioned and committed work that brought it to this point. We have a good start. We have a valuable conversation going on that's really engaging everybody. We, as a state board, really appreciate State Superintendent Tony Thurman, Deputy Superintendent Stephanie Gregson, and the CDE staff for all their hard work and commitment to transparency and the robust public participation. There's so many staff behind the scenes working to really help this process. And to Senator Allen and Assemblywoman Weber and all the legislature, we really appreciate approving AB 114 that gave the state the gift of time. We just think it's going to take time to do this right, and that's what we really want to do. We're going to be using the coming year very wisely. It's just such important work that we heard from everyone, and we want to get this right. We don't want to rush it. We want the document to represent what we have committed to, both with legislation and with our guidelines. We are committed as a state board to providing a guidance document. So just remember, the model curriculum is a guidance document that will help our students understand society, their peers, and themselves. But it's a guidance document to help the adults do the work in the schools as well. And it has to be empowering and inspire empathy. So really, it's about the adults and the teachers and the focus groups. So I really thank Deputy Superintendent Gregson for the structure that will have focus groups that also include those who teach ethnic studies and the students who are involved in the classes. We know there'll be difficult conversations ahead, but we are hoping that this will bring all of our colleagues together around the important work. We do have the students' best interests at heart, and we will stay committed through the process to full approval of this document. So just thank you all for what you've done to this point, and also the work coming ahead, which we know will be really important and engaging and very thoughtful. Thank you on behalf of the State Board of Education.
Thank you, State Board Member Strauss and Ortiz Incon. Thank you. So we have kind of embraced sort of a spirit of optimism for what's to come, and a lot of great work ahead, bringing people together to emphasize the spirit of the legislation and the desire to really serve all students in California. So it's great to be a part of this process as a commission. Now, before we adjourn,
Can I say one thing?
Absolutely.
Just because I know that there's going to be people who are very interested in knowing what happens next. How do you keep informed? And so I would request that you sign up for the IQC listserv. Communication for what's happening next in the process will be communicated through that listserv, and also on the Ethnic Studies Model Curriculum webpage on the CDE website. So please keep paying attention to the webpage and any communication coming out from the listserv for the IQC. Thank you.
So at this time, before I adjourn the History Social Science Subject Matter Committee, are there any other matters not related to the model curriculum that anyone on the SMC would like to discuss? Yes.
I would like, I'm not in the classroom like everybody else is here, but it would be interesting in the light of what we just talked about for some sort of report back about the extent to which some of these other related topics are what sort of progress we're making in terms of incorporating them into the existing frameworks. That what's happening with the genocide framework, what about the Cesar Chavez piece? How is this all playing together in our existing social studies teaching on the ground? And that would be interesting to me, and I think would help me better understand where this fits into the broader conversation.
So we do currently have a History Social Science Collaboration Committee that is made up of many partners across the education of history social science that come together and develop professional learning modules for our teachers in all of those areas. So we can invite them to come do a presentation to the IQC to help keep you informed on what's happening on that front.
Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting, and it'd also be really interesting, how much of this stuff that is going on up here at the CD is actually making its way out into the classrooms on a macro level. I mean, I understand there are always going to be great stories from all over the state, but how much of it is getting taught to everybody? So I would love that, and I appreciate your forbearance.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Senator Allen. Are there any other members of the SMC that would like to make comment other than on the model curriculum at this time? Okay. Are there any members of the public that would like to make a public comment on matters not related to the model curriculum? Okay, hearing none and seeing none. All right. I adjourn this meeting of the History Social Science Subject Matter Committee.
And I'm going to adjourn the IQC.